We also have a prime factorization method for finding the least common multiple of two numbers. So the idea here is, again, we want to rewrite our two numbers with their prime factorizations. And we're going to take each of the primes that are factors of either of the given numbers. So it can be a factor of the first number, the second number, or both numbers. We're going to compute the LCM by taking each of those primes raised to the highest power of the prime that occurs in either of the prime factorizations. So let's look at this with an example. I want to find the least common multiple of 2,520 and 10,530. So our first step is going to be to find the prime factorization of each of those numbers. I'm going to just tell you what you should get. I suggest that you pause the video and try finding those prime factorizations yourself and then come back and compare your answer to mine. I got 2 cubed times 3 squared times 5 times 7 for 2,520, and 2 times 3 to the 4th times 5 times 13 for 10,530. So the least common multiple is found by taking each prime that occurs in either factorization raised to the highest power that appears. So I have a 2 in both factorizations. 2 cubed is the highest power, so I'm going to have a 2 cubed times a 3 to the power 4 times a 5 to the first. 7 only appears in the first factorization, so I'm going to have a 7 to the first. And 13 only appears in the second factorization, so I have 13. So this is my least common multiple. You may leave your answer like this on quizzes and exams. If you're working on homework, you can plug this into a calculator to get the number. I got 294,840. All right. You can also use this LCM GCD product method. So this is a fact that you should just know. The GCD of two numbers times the LCM of those two numbers is equal to the product of the two numbers. So suppose I already know the GCD of 731 and 952 is 17. I want to use this fact above to help me find the least common multiple of 731 and 952. So if I rewrite my fact, it says the GCD of 731 and 952 times the LCM of 731 and 952 is equal to the product of 731 times 952. Now I can replace the GCD here with its value. It's 17. So 17 times the least common multiple of 731 and 952 is equal to the product of 731 with 952. And now to solve for the least common multiple, we can divide both sides by 17. 17's cancel on the left, and I'm left with the least common multiple of 731 and 952 is 731 times 952 divided by 17. Now we talked about how to do multiplication and division in the last chapter, so you should be able to compute this by hand. I'm just going to tell you what the answer is: 40,936. Let's look at one more method for computing the least common multiple, and this is called the division by primes method. So the idea is I'm going to continually divide by the smallest prime that divides at least one of my given numbers. So this is a good method for finding the least common multiple if you've got multiple numbers that you're looking at. So I want to find the least common multiple of 12, 75, and 120. And I'm going to start with 2. That's the smallest prime, and it does divide 12 and 120. So I'm going to divide 12 by 2. That gives me the 6. 75 isn't divisible by 2, so I just pull the 75 down, and I divide 120 by 2. That gives me 60. All right, I'm going to continue this process until I I get down to some ones and a single prime. So I've done it all here. So the next step, I had 6, 75, and 60. 2 divides 6 and 60, so we're going to do 2 again. 6 divided by 2 is 3. 75 just gets pulled back down. And 60 divided by 2 is 30. When I look at this, these three numbers, 2 divides it again. It divides the 30. So the 3 and the 75 just come down, and the 30 gets divided by 2. That's 15. Now I'm looking at 3, 75, and 15. The smallest prime that divides at least one of those numbers is 3. I'm going to divide each of these by 3, in fact, so I get 1, 25, and 5. And the smallest prime that divides at least one of those numbers is 5. And I'm going to get 1, 5, and 1. Now I'm going to look at these numbers, these primes that I divided, and I'm going to multiply all of them together. So the least common multiple of 12, 75, and 120 is going to be the product 2 times 2 times 2 times 3 times 5 times 1 times 5 times 1, which is 600. Let's do another example. We want to find the least common multiple of 72, 90, and 96. So I'm going to write 72, 90, and 96. The smallest prime that divides at least one of those is 2. 72 divided by 2 is 36. 90 divided by 2 is 45. And 96 divided by 2 is 48. And now I'm going to think about the smallest prime that divides at least one of these numbers. That's going to be 2 again. I'm going to get 18. 45 is not divisible by 2, so I just pull the 45 down. And 48 divided by 2 is 24. 2 divides 18 and 24 again, so I have another 2. I'm going to have 9. The 45 just comes down, and the 24 divided by 2 is 12. I can still keep dividing by 2. 12 is divisible by 2, so I'm going to pull the 9 and the 45 down. The 12 divided by 2 is 6. And 6 is also divisible by 2, so I'm going to have another 2 here. 9 and 45 get pulled down, and 6 divided by 2 is 3. All right, I can't divide by 2 anymore, so the next smallest prime is 3, and these numbers are all divisible by 3, so I'm going to divide by 3. I have 3, 15, and 1. I can divide again by 3, so I get 1, 5, and the 1 comes down. And now I'm going to take the product of all of these numbers. So I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 2's. So 2 to the 5th times 3 squared times 1 times 5 times 1. And that's going to give me 1,440. And that's my least common multiple.